what the Niners would have to give up for Julio. Now, Mike Florio wrote some today on Pro Football Talk, which broke it down in an interesting way. Either a team gives up a lot of money. Well, either you ask the Falcons to pay for some of his contract, in which case you'd be giving up a high draft pick, or you eat that entire contract and give up like a low pick. So it could go either way. Can you explain that? Because I don't think I was speaking English right there.
Yeah. What Florio was basically saying is either the Falcons get this really high pick, a premium quality pick, like a first round pick, and they eat a lot of Julio Jones' contract, or they get the cap space and give up Julio Jones' contract, but then only get like a second or third round pick for Julio Jones. Which, right. Come on, like a second or third round pick for Julio Jones. What are we talking about here?
So in a sense, Atlanta's like paying for the pick. If you want a second, there's a price. You want a third, there's a price.
Right. And here's the detail to me that makes and the reason why I think Atlanta won't go the cap space route. I don't understand what they're going to get from reducing their cap hit this year. They're not going to be able to make a move for anybody else or anything like that. So they're going to be just looking to get the premium pick, because it's about trying to build something around Matt Ryan for the future, right? Like, I think in an ideal world, in my opinion, it makes no sense for Atlanta to trade Julio Jones. You just restructured Matt Ryan. Right. You drafted Kyle Pitts. That team is way better.
Piss off Matt Ryan, the entire team and the fan base. It's not going to be a popular move. I mean, are you kidding? They're going to look terrible.
Yeah, you could have the best offense in the NFL next year if you had Julio Jones.
Exactly. But if they want the pick and not the money, that means they're going to be helping out with his contract. So the biggest concern you had in the previous segment was what it would cost, considering all the other people who were expensive.
I never had a problem with the 2021 cost. I think the 2021 cost post June 1st is very manageable. But they're not going to
pay for 2022 and 2023.
Why would they pay for 2022, 2023? Who does that?
Good point. Oh, well. Well, okay, so let's say the Niners – here's the thing. So we agree it's not the smart move. It's not the prudent move. That's the word I want to use. It's not the prudent move. But Kyle Shanahan is a lot of things. Not always prudent. Sometimes he'll make a 33-year-old left tackle the highest paid offensive lineman of all time. Not a bad move, but is it also the prudent move? Not sure. Let's say Kyle Shanahan has a special affinity for Julio Jones. I mean, he coached him. He might consider him the best wide receiver since Jerry Rice. And he's like, you know what, 32? That's no problem. He's going to be great till he's 37. Maybe Kyle feels that way about him. And he said, let's make a non-prudent move and go crazy, balls to the wall. In which case, we both don't like trading that second-round pick. Is there a player that you would dangle that you think is worth comparable to that?
If you're going receiver for receiver, he's my favorite player in the NFL, but Debo would be the guy that I would.
It seems like a natural trade, right? I mean, from Atlanta's perspective, you get a young player with potential, and from the Niners' perspective, you get Julio freaking Jones.
Right, and there's enough smoke around the fact that apparently the Niners don't want to give Debo a second contract, and they have concerns with Debo's weight and all of that. So, like, from that standpoint, okay, you're only going to have Debo for 2 more years. Why not get Julio for 2 more years? But the one thing I would say, and the reason in terms of, like, obviously I'm trading Debo Samuel for Julio Jones. Like, everybody and their grandma would do that. This is Julio freaking Jones. But the one thing I would say is that even though Julio Jones makes life easy for quarterbacks, of course he does all of that, I think Debo makes life easy for a quarterback more than any other wide receiver in the NFL, because he turns negative plays into 20-yard gains, and that really helps your statistics a lot.
Yeah, you basically hand the ball off to Debo and fancy hands off. He gets the fancy handoffs, the little pitches and pop passes. Yeah, I agree. I would do this though. I would trade Debo for Julio. I'm sorry. I mean, I have my misgivings about Debo as well. Even though Julio's about 8 years older than him, I would still do this.
Yeah, I would trade Debo for Julio too. Heck, I would maybe even consider it with Ayuk, because if you think your window is the next 3 years on Trey Lance's rookie deal, especially because this is an older roster. I mean, Trent Williams is 33, Julio would be 32. Yeah. It is. There are some older players here. And the secondary is obviously all kind of veteran, oldish guys. If you think your window is right here in the next 2-3 years, like, I love Ayuk. Ayuk was great as a rookie. Julio is basically right now Probably
better
than Ayuk might ever be.
Better.
Like, let's be honest. I know everybody loves Ayuk. I know people. There were a lot of debates on Twitter. I was on vacation and I was checking Twitter and people were yelling at each other that like Ayuk is better than DK Metcalf and DK Metcalf is overrated. And I was seeing all of this and I was like, all right, I really need to get back to vacation. I need to get back to vacation.
Let's chill. Yeah.
But when push comes down to shove, whether it's Debo, whether it's Ayuk, like this is Julio Jones. And if it's player for player, no picks, like, yeah, the money still is a question mark then, but still, if you're just replacing one of them with Julio Jones and you're saying we're going all in for the next 2 years and we have to make this move, man, I would do it just because, like, again, even right now, I don't know if Brandon Ayuk would be as good as Julio Jones is currently right now. Ever.
True. But here's the thing. Let's come back to your main issue with getting Julio Jones. The money. That's your main issue, right? The money, period. So I think that's legit. And I feel like in order to make that work, you'd have to send back someone who's going to be taking up that money. And so it could be Debo, although you do have Debo for 2 more years. 2 more years? 2 more years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cheap. What about Fred Warner?
No, heck
That's too much.
Heck no. Unless they're giving Deion Jones back.
Right. Okay. That's too much. So it would have to be Fred Warner for Julio Jones and Deion Jones. 2 Joneses. Yeah. Double Jones.
I'd do that.
I
don't know. I don't even know how that money works because Deion.
Who are other people that make a lot of money on the Niners? Armstead. You think Armstead could get Julio?
I don't know if Atlanta wants a player. That's the problem.
Fair. Why would you want 28-year-old Armstead? Why? Yeah. No, I'll just take the 2nd round pick, please.
Yeah.
Cost control,
and it's
young.
It's nothing against like Armstead being, because he is a good player. I think he gets a lot more flack. Like, I mean, you criticize him, I think, fairly, but I think fans take your criticisms and go, Armstead's not a good player, blah, blah, blah. No. He's still a good player.
He can be very good. He can be very good. Yes. He really can. Yeah.
But I think the thing is that, like, why would you want if you're like in this kind of weird spot where you're building / rebuilding, like, why would you trade maybe the greatest player in the history of your franchise for just a defensive lineman or whatever? You're better off taking the pick, parlaying it into a couple other picks and seeing what you can
Why would you even trade him for Debo?
Yeah.
Why would you even do that?
Honestly, why would you? I think that's a great question. Like there's
Debo has issues.
NFL teams prefer picks because they just want to draft who they want. They don't want somebody else's player.
And you want 4 years of cost control, not 2.
Right.
Yeah. If the Niners want Julio, they're going to have to trade that 2nd round pick and find a way to make it work financially. And honestly, if Julio is here, I don't know that Fred Warner can stay.
No, I think he can stay. I really think he can stay. The problem is what happens to your secondary. Because you have this entire secondary that you need to rebuild.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do, right? The entire point of Trey Lance is that next year when Jimmy Garoppolo is gone, the Niners even after signing Warner, the Niners going to have a ton of money to play with in terms of, like, all of a sudden, Stephon Gilmore's on the market and you sign Stephon Gilmore.
Because remember, people,
Gilmore?
There's going to be no cap space if they have Julio Jones and no picks in the top 100. So how do you get starting DBs? No money, no picks. How do you do it? Now you could trade Debo, Bosa, people. You're gonna have to start trading people. You can't have this team together for that long.
Unless
you can't.
I mean, unless we're talking like the worst case scenario happens and you're somehow able to bring back K'Wan, Verrett, and Tart because they all have like injury riddled seasons. But then if they have injury riddled seasons, do you want to bring them back? So it's like, and if things go right and those 3 play the way they're capable of, there's no way the Niners can bring them back for 1 year $3 million, 1 year $7 million, and 1 year $2 million. No way.